Hello Team FD. Before we dive into 40 minutes of Sunday Vibes goodness, a quick reminder to subscribe to our brand new channel, Football Daily Premier League. It's where we match footage with underlying numbers, stats, all that good stuff. So come on over, be great to have you. It's UK only at the moment, so apologies to our global fan base. Anyway, on with the show.
Welcome back to Sunday Vibes, one and all. We're back in the pub, me, Chris and Pat, to answer your burning questions. The first one was sent in by Julius
Caesar.
A load of numbers, who says, which teams or players have proven you wrong thus far? Which players, I want to change this to, have proven the doubters wrong rather than just Football Daily, because some players have proven Football Daily wrong.
We're right all the
Timu
bloody
Pookie.
time.
We already know that Pookie's proven me wrong, but slightly more wide-ranging. Anybody want to pick up on some players that have proven people wrong?
Well, I do think we should have a bit of a look at Pookie.
Okay.
I mean, to be fair, I think what we said in the summer was going into the season with Pookie as your only recognised striker would be foolhardy. And I still maintain that it is. Because his form has not been amazing over the last few games relative to how he started the season. And you don't really have a way of changing it up, which is a little bit of a problem for them. But he has been great. He's got 6 goals, 2 assists in 10 Premier League games. I think XG and expected assists per 90 at about 0.66, which is extremely healthy. 2.8 shots, 1.2 key passes. Those aren't like tremendous, but you expected the shot numbers to go down when they were coming up to a division where they were going to have a lot less of the ball. Yeah. But he's still capable of getting high quality shot attempts. He's still got some time left in his career as well. He's not like ancient.
Norwich are just in horrible form.
I just couldn't get the Celtic version of Pookie out of my head. This pale, lightweight Finnish striker being thrown around by defenders at St Mirren. And now he's got that big old bushy beard. He's put on a bit of muscle and he looks like a really solid Premier League striker. But like you said, shot numbers have dropped a little bit for him personally as well as the team. I think in the first 4 games of the season he had something like 15 shots, and then the subsequent 4 it was like 11, 12 shots, and it's kept dropping since. But what Norwich keep doing is getting high quality shots. I think around 6.5 out of 11.5 from inside the penalty area, which is really mid-table, which is promising to see. But that defence is still very shaky.
Yeah. Although since like the start of the season, they haven't scored many goals. They've had lots of 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, 2-0, and then like barring that Manchester City
and the Newcastle game,
I think which was a fluke really, where Timu Pookie scored goals. I don't think he scored. So I think
he hasn't scored or assisted in his last
August 5 or September.
So that was in September. That was the City game. So he's not in the best of form recently, but at the same time, like these things come and go. Like you start off hot and you get a bit colder. Like that's kind of inevitable. I think if you wanted to look at it the other way, players who've kind of proved people wrong, who were saying they were going to be superstars, you could argue that the Norwich fullbacks have been a little bit underwhelming. Like they're extremely young. And there's still a chance they'll be great, but I do remember people saying, look, Max Aarons is going to come into the Premier League and be one of the outstanding fullbacks. And it was kind of like, he's a teenager. The odds of that happening are exceptionally slim. And I think defensively, they've looked a little bit out of their depth. I think they're probably a couple of years away and perhaps a little bit of physical development away from becoming like properly Premier League level defenders. But all these minutes will help them. I just don't think they're going to save them this season.
He's been linked with Spurs, hasn't he, Max Aarons? Do you think he would profile well there? Does he profile as a Pochettino player?
He does a lot of ball progression. He gets the ball into the final third a lot. He doesn't do a whole lot of defending. So you could argue that maybe you could use him in the sort of Trippier mould, who was like not a particularly good defensive fullback, but obviously got the ball forward a lot. I don't know. It's really too early to say. Like nobody's got 1,000 minutes yet in the Prem, so we'll see where he is come the end of the season. But I just fear for that defence. I like that they came up and said this is the talent that got us here, and we're going to ride with it. And if we go back down, so be it. But at the same time, they are going to go back down.
I also, but I think they're probably anticipating that. And I think if Farke brought that squad up again, then they might spend a bit of money. I feel like they're being sensible for now, and I don't think that hierarchy would sack Farke. Short of an absolute horror show. I think if they remain competitive amongst the bottom 5 teams, he's probably safe.
You'd hope so, and I think he deserves to be safe, but there's panic. It always gets to Christmas and people are always panicking, and I've just got images of like 3 more bad results and panic setting in behind the scenes of Norwich.
But it's not quite the same as, say, like a Villa, where they're like, we think we've given you every possible resource to succeed.
Yeah.
We've given you so much money. They came up and they gave him a new keeper, and that was like basically it.
But I think with Villa, they also had a lot of doubters at the start of the season, despite spending £130 million, having lost Tammy Abraham, who got 26 last season, and people were saying that, who's going to replace the output. Vesley started really well. A lot of people doubted him. I think he's about 0.6 expected goals and assists per 90 so far this season. Grealish about 0.5. Stepped up to the plate, and of course John McGinn, who is now being linked with like top level clubs and was kind of being laughed at last season when people were suggesting that. So I think that they've largely, as a squad, more as a team than individuals necessarily, proven some of the doubters wrong.
I don't know if that's true though. Like I understand that they've been better than we expected, but what we basically said is they spent an awful lot of money to build a squad which was still going to be in the relegation fight, and they are still in the relegation fight.
Yeah,
and I
the
imagine
defence
they will
is hounding. The defence is horrible, particularly Neil Taylor. Yeah,
it's probably gelled a little bit quicker than I thought. Tyrone Mings wasn't particularly a big fan of that signing, given the money it took to prize him away from Bournemouth, wasn't it?
Yeah, 20 million.
And his injury record.
That was a hell of an investment. If that didn't come good, then they would have been in even more trouble. But he's been really solid at the start of this season. What I think might be Villa's downfall is that they have almost specialists in that starting XI. If that starting XI stays fit, I think they'll stay up. But when you're looking to bring someone in to replace Grealish's ball progression or his dribbling ability or his ability to, get them up the pitch, or John McGinn's kind of all-round contribution, his defensive numbers, and then his ability to beat a man as well and put in a really incisive pass. Like I don't see that on their bench, and their system is quite dependent on their best players and if kind of being there.
Yeah, I mean, if Vesley gets injured, there's big trouble. We kind of talked about it a little bit more on the podcast this week, Sunday Vibes Extra Time. So if you want to go and download that, you can click the link in the description below. But behind him, like the likes of Kodja, and then you're asking Trezeguet and El Ghazi to fill holes, and I'm not convinced.
Yeah, what I mean by that is, so the system wouldn't necessarily make up for it, in my opinion. Whereas if someone dropped out of Sheffield United starting lineup, you would kind of back a player to come in.
You'd hope so.
And because he knows what Chris Wilder demands in that system, it would be less impactful on losing a first-team player.
There's some first-team names in that Sheffield United squad that everybody doubted would be able to step up. Ollie Norwood was getting written off left, right and centre at the start of the season. I think he's proven everybody wrong with his ability to step up and captain that side.
Well, he's number one in their team for passing, number one, I think, for defensive contributions, and just looks like a really cultured little player who springs every single attack, doesn't he? He's essential to that side.
At the same time, you would not sign anybody
you wouldn't,
from Sheffield.
But I think everybody, including us probably, had Sheffield United as like stone cold.
Yeah, we were like,
but then that to me like makes me feel like we maybe doubted Chris Wilder. Though I do think that it was still sensible to doubt them. Like, you look at the squad is horrendous. Like, there's so little talent in it, and
although players like Basham and O'Connell, they've stepped up.
No, they're good. Yeah. They're good. They're fine. But like, there's nobody there who you think, okay, that's a player who can carry this team. Like, they don't have any of that top level talent. But clearly, they're just a system side, and they play the system really well.
If you're a mid-table side in the Premier League, do you look to try and purloin, that Sheffield squad, someone from that Sheffield squad in January?
Probably not. No.
Yeah, the answer is probably not.
But having said that, at some stage, they have to start scoring some goals because they are not going to continue at this defensive rate for the entire season. Yeah, and he's obviously had the off-the-field troubles now, so I don't know what's going on behind the scenes there. But
he played against Arsenal. He came up against Arsenal.
Did he? Yeah. So has that all been resolved behind the scenes?
I have no idea.
Well, none of their strikers are taking over 2 shots at the moment. McGoldrick, who's like the poor man's Berbatov, that's no disrespect to him. McGoldrick's touch is pure silk, and then probably not much else from there on in. But 1.9 shots I think he's taken, and he's leading Sheffield United in that regard. So that's not something that screams like staying up comfortably. And they bought Ollie McBurney, didn't they? Because he had a knack of getting good shots off in high quality areas. Even though I don't think he's ever put up +3 in a season. But
and also like he was quite reliant on Dan James running off him last season at Swansea, wasn't he? And Matt Grimes kind of threading balls into his feet, and I don't know whether
I rate Matt Grimes.
They quite have that pace in that Sheffield United side to do that and run off it. and you look at the defensive numbers, I think, have they conceded like 8 goals or something like that, and expected goals has it more like 14. So they're riding their luck a little bit, and around Christmas, January, they need somebody to step up and just start scoring goals. Let's go back to some players then. Some ones I've got written down here, written off. I've got written down Soyuncu. Now we didn't write Soyuncu off, I don't remember, but I'm guessing some people weren't sure that he'd be able to step up and fill the void left by Maguire at Leicester.
It would have been weird for us to talk about Soyuncu, wouldn't it? Because I think he made 3 starts last season for Leicester. I've accumulated, 10 appearances?
But I guess there were doubters at home saying that, look, Maguire's left. Is this the man to replace him without spending any money at all?
Yeah, but I mean, when Soyuncu came in, he was extremely highly rated. Like, he'd been linked to Arsenal and Spurs that whole summer, and he ended up going to Leicester because neither one of them wanted to take a gamble. At the same time, I still think it's wise to counsel a little bit of let's calm it down a little bit on Soyuncu. I think Soyuncu is good. I've enjoyed watching him so far this season. I think there is an attitude among some people that Soyuncu now looks like a top-class centre-back, and I think he looks
world class.
I think he looks fine. I think he's quite dumb at times.
What do you mean?
Like, he runs out of the back line and just like makes tackles
and wins it.
He often loses it as well.
But he can do that with Johnny Evans behind him.
He can also do it with incredibly athletic fullbacks. But what concerns me, basically, I feel like when we praise Ndidi, the great thing about Ndidi is it means that the defence sees less traffic, and I feel like then to claim that the centre backs are also amazing, it feels like a disservice to Ndidi. I feel like they just get a lot of protection, and they're good, they're fine, but I don't know. We will see. We will see what he turns into.
Yeah. But Ndidi means that you can play both Maddison and Tielemans as those roaming eights. So he gets, I suppose, as a team, there's less defensive output in that forward line, isn't there?
Is that true? Like, Perez has been averaging. Perez was averaging like 4 tackles a game.
I mean, in the FDPL video I did, I mean, they're averaging the most tackles per game as a squad, which isn't surprising given that Ndidi's putting up like...
And Pereira.
Yeah, tackles and interceptions, +8. Yeah, and Pereira's an absolute beast down that right-hand side. But I think that defence probably in transition has to put up with a little bit more traffic than they'd be comfortable with, purely because, when Maddison commits, when Perez commits, when Tielemans commits, it's gonna hit them quicker on the break, and that's why I think you see Soyuncu stepping out like that. He kind of has to, I guess.
So,
because
I don't blame.
So highly up the
I don't blame him. He can play though. Soyuncu. Do you think
he's World Cup winner, mate?
He's extremely young. So it's still early to say. Like, a lot of that stuff gets ironed out. He's 23, starting for a good Premier League side. So, but it's one of those things where, we talk about taking players off. They've been very, very conservative up until recently, Leicester, very conservative. Like, bearing in mind these guys started the season with Chowdhury there as well, and an extremely rigid team in front of them where everybody was sticking to position. Like, you talk about people committing, but I don't actually really see that from Leicester. I think Rodgers, it's actually been interesting seeing Rodgers do a different thing, I think. This is the most conservative side I've really seen from him.
At the start of the season, sure, when Chowdhury is playing in that double pivot, they've moved to a 4-1 now, haven't they? Which I think is completely the right move. I agree at the start of the season, 2 negative against Chelsea, 2 negative against Manchester United. We all want to see Harvey Barnes out wide. I think James Maddison wants to see Harvey Barnes out wide because when he plays on the left, he's not as effective, nowhere near as effective. But yeah, I think what's been an additional sort of bonus with Soyuncu is his distribution. His passing's been great, and that was necessary with Maguire departing because he was so good at springing attacks. Now, Soyuncu's long game isn't as good, we've said this before, but Wilfred Ndidi maybe doesn't have to start to play because Soyuncu can do that. So it kind of gives you a different option from deep.
He's a decent player. He looks decent at the moment. But I just think, let's like pump the brakes a little bit because
I'm going to get carried away.
I still think, I'd quite like to see Benkovic get some minutes for them as well this season.
God, you forget he's there, don't you?
Well, he's so young as well. Apparently, there are rumours they want to sell him, but I don't really understand why. He's so young and they've got absolutely no depth at centre back.
He pretty much completed defending in Scotland in about 9 games. Should have seen his radar.
Is it necessary?
It was insane.
Is it necessary to defend in Scotland? Sometimes. If you're at Celtic, don't they
play one
just
at
let
the
you
back,
win?
Celtic,
Sometimes, mate. Inverness away is a tricky tie.
Okay, I'm going to throw 2 other names at you that I think have been doubted and put down too much. Scott McTominay.
Yeah.
riddled with doubters.
You were at Stamford Bridge last night and you were raving about his performance this morning, so why?
Well, just because he has to do the job of 3 midfielders by himself. Because we've got 7-touch Fred in there.
But then that's the first time he's actually done that.
It's not.
Look at his numbers in the Premier League and even watch him. Like,
I do watch him every week.
When you say like he does the job of 3 guys, then why don't we see that?
We do.
He doesn't create. He's not a particularly good passer. In fact, I think he's
not. That's
like
probably one of
passer.
his weaker traits.
And defensively, he doesn't have high output as well. Like last night, you said. Like when you were talking about him, you were like 10 tackles and interceptions. And don't get me wrong, that is actually amazing, especially away at Chelsea, who played, some strong players in midfield. But then in the Premier League, it's like 3 a game.
But promising to know we can do
But I think
that.
the reason that
everyone can do that.
I think the reason his stats are that low.
Yeah, people do that. Like people do that. Like Ayoze Perez had like 8 tackles and interceptions in a game early in the season, playing as a forward. Like players do put those things up, but it's consistency over the course of the season.
But controlling the game away at Chelsea for Manchester United is something that.
I also think that his stats suffer because he's constantly moved around positions. Like he never plays a role. Like he's like, right, you're defensive mid today, now you're shuttling, now you're helping in that right back area when we're getting overloaded over there. Like he's basically like Solskjaer's go-to guy and being like, I need you to fill a hole. And Scott is just like, yeah, I'll do it for you. And if you had decent midfielders alongside him, I think his stats would be better.
Yeah, if he struck up a partnership. Like that is, he's been the mainstay, hasn't he?
Yeah, and now obviously we're trying to offload, like desperately trying to offload Matic to Inter at the moment.
What's happened with Pogba? He broke his toe or something?
So Pogba's broken his toe, yeah. But
you know how?
I think Pogba's there's something in that he is kind of moving, isn't it? Like I think we can all agree that
he's not going to go in January.
He might go in January.
Jesus.
He might go in January.
You've got to do some work then.
Yeah, but he's missed 80% of our games this season.
No, but I mean, okay, what if McTominay gets injured then?
Yeah, then we're in massive problems. massive trouble.
You've got about 4 guys.
Pogba's not there now, is he? Pogba's not there, not playing now, and we're doing okay. Like, we're not ripping up trees, but we're also not as horrific as everybody painted us at the start of the season when people were saying, laughing at us and we were in relegation.
I do think McTominay deserves that bandwidth, like the idea that he could be
have better
output. I think he's done enough to warrant that.
Again, I'm not saying that he's an elite central midfielder because he's definitely not. But people were saying, like he'd be lucky to get in Burnley's team, and I'm like, he's better than Burnley. Like,
I think you said Burnley are better than you think.
Championship.
I think I said Pereira was Championship. I think I said McTominay. We don't know if he's a Premier League player yet. So you could argue maybe he is now, but I don't think
getting better every week as well.
I don't really see the argument as well that he'd have better output with better players around him. That's not what tends to happen. If he has players around him who do more defensive work, his defensive work will go down. Like, if he has players around him, he had a player next to him doing a lot of creative and ball progression stuff, and you'd expect him then to have more defensive.
But do you not think that's also because he's like a young player who hasn't been given a role and told, like, this is what I want you to work on? Like, this is what you're going to be doing every week for me.
Not really, because I feel like whatever he does, he's always tasked with closing people down and trying to get the ball back. That is the thing that I always see him trying to do.
Yeah, and he's good. And he's defensive pressures.
I think he's good at that.
But he doesn't actually win the ball.
But if
he wins it quite a lot.
He wins it 3 times a game.
Say if he does what he did at Chelsea last night, another 2 or 3 times away from home at big clubs in the Premier League, puts up those massive defensive numbers and clearly that's what Ollie's instructed him to do. Then you start to go, oh, actually, this guy can be this sort of player and do it very well.
He's not that young. Like, and the thing is, tackles and interceptions, things like that, tend to pop really young. You know, look at a guy like Camavinga, who we were talking about for Rennes in that game against PSG. You often tend to see, like with young attacking players, shots and dribbles pop really young. Key passes come later. With defensive players, tackles and interceptions come up really, really young. And with him, it's just, I'm not sure what he is yet. And it's not that he's a very good all-rounder.
That's not his fault.
It's not because okay, but you can say at the same time, maybe it's not his fault, but at the same time, like, I'm basically taking your word for it that he's going to be a great player.
I'm not saying he's going to be a great player.
Okay, he's going to be a very, very good player, or whatever.
I'm saying he's a good enough player for Manchester United, and 2-3 weeks ago, everybody was saying he's nowhere near Man United.
I don't think that's true. I feel like people loved McTominay.
No.
United fans, maybe. I feel like he could have a similar impact.
He got really amped up last season.
Similar impact for Manchester United than Oxlade-Chamberlain is probably going to have for Liverpool this season.
Or Jordan Henderson's had for Liverpool. And Jordan Henderson.
Not in terms of playing style, but just in terms of like.
I think Jordan Henderson's been fantastic.
Position in the
If he ends up being at that level, that would be fantastic. But Jordan Henderson was better at this age than McTominay is.
Probably, but he was playing for Sunderland at this stage.
He was really, really good as a young player.
So I think like McTominay needs some plaudits, effectively, is what I'm saying.
Bit of a Swiss Army knife. And like it's good to have him in and around the squad, which we've always said, haven't we? We've always said he deserves his place in the squad. It's just whether if you want United to be a Champions League team again, that he features prominently in that side.
And then Dan James as well. I think he's a player that at the start of the season had a lot of doubters, us included. I think we were like, oh, this seems like a bit of a risk.
Why would you not? Why would we have not doubted him at that point? He'd had one season under his
belt.
And it wasn't so much that we doubted that he was going to be all right. It was that we were kind of like, why is he going to United as opposed to like Brighton? Like if he'd gone to Brighton, I don't think we would have like batted an eyelid at it. But United, we were like, is this guy going to start for Manchester United?
He's so key for the United attack as well.
11 goal contributions last season, wasn't it? And 33 championship starts. And decent numbers, like over 3 shots per game. I mean, that has dropped to like 1.8 this season. So maybe he is a little bit fortunate to have as many goals as he does. But with that speed and the ability to cross with both feet, he's always going to be useful, which is nice. Again, it's good to have that flexibility in the squad.
Again, he's another player that's probably going to be a squad player, but has definitely proven some people wrong at the start of the season. And I don't think he's going to rip up loads of trees either. However, United, statistically, obviously, it is massively boosted by the amount of penalties we've had at the start of the season, have very good underlying numbers in attack. And he has played nearly every minute of every game because we've got nobody else up there, and Martial's missed 8 weeks.
At the same time, though, there's been a lot he's been heavily involved, but he's still at like 0.3 expected goals and assists per 90. He's got 5 goal involvements. So basically, what you'd expect is kind of 13 goals and assists over the course of the season from him right now.
It's not too bad though.
It's not too good. It's not too good though.
21-year-old first season in the Premier League.
It's one of those things where you think, okay, this could develop. Like he looks like someone now who you could say I can understand why United like took a little gamble on him. But again, long term, you don't want him starting for you.
And he completes like 31% of his dribbles as well. Like you'd expect him with that pace to have a similar impact to Adama Traore on that right-hand side.
I'd be interested to know.
Like that knock and go isn't quite.
I don't know whether it works, but I don't know whether this contributes to the stat. Does it count as a completed dribble if he's fouled in the process? Because he is constantly fouled. He knocks it, gets fouled, and goes
fouls one, wouldn't it?
Yeah, you could look at.
So does that go down as a failed dribble?
I don't know.
I mean, it's a good question.
Because I think that could sway his numbers massively.
If he gets
definitely the most
fouled
player in Man United.
Then he's fouled. You'd imagine it counts. But if he's fouled mid dribble, it's uncompleted. So I'd say no.
He must be the most fouled player in the United squad. He's always on the floor.
Should we move on to Tammy Abraham, because we got a bit of stick on Monday for not including Chelsea in the winners and losers after that 4-2 routing of Burnley.
But that's because they weren't very good.
And also, Burnley getting 2 late goals made that result seem a lot less impressive.
Ashley Barnes missing from an inch.
Yeah, I mean, those 2 late goals, I mean, that game was extremely even when you watched it. Extremely.
But Tammy Abraham, you're a big fan of his going into this season.
Massive
you were quite bullish on him. We were probably a little bit more unconvinced of him as a first-team striker. I definitely thought he'd be useful in that squad and he'd get minutes under Lampard, being a young English talent.
I think I listened to too many Villa fans. Every Villa fan I spoke to was like, he won't be able to step up.
Which is weird because he got 29 goal contributions in 40 starts, which is, I think, their best return for a striker since the mid-70s, which is ridiculous. And he had good pedigree coming into the season, didn't he? 60 goals in like 130 appearances for the likes of Bristol, Villa. Who else did he go to? Swansea, albeit that wasn't the best spell for him. And last season, taking over 3 shots again, which is really promising. We kind of expected those numbers to drop, but they've actually gone up. Now, Chelsea have quite a productive forward line, don't they? And the likes of Mason Mount are generating opportunities for him. Pulisic will generate opportunities for him. He's not going to cut in and shoot because he prefers to set people up, doesn't he? But he's taking around 3.12 shots in the box from 3.8 in total. And if he can sustain those sort of numbers, I think there's only 5 players that are having more shots than that in the Premier League. If he can sustain those sort of numbers, I mean, he's going to stay in the squad, isn't he? Giroud's certainly not going to replace him at this point. Then I expect him to have like a 15, 20 goal season, and he
needs to, though.
That'd be a hell of a start to life at Chelsea.
But he's under a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure on Tammy Abraham, I feel, to score goals, because Chelsea's defence has looked so shaky. Like, even last night against Man United, I thought at moments we didn't create an awful lot from open play, but every time the players at the back for Chelsea came under any pressure, it was like wobbles immediately.
But yeah, there is a little bit of hype there. So, for instance, in the second half against Burnley, there was a video that was going around on Twitter, you know, of Tamori, Mike, doing the track back challenge. And it was great, but obviously you don't see the whole first half where he was constantly out of position, like got beaten relentlessly, like, and Burnley created a load of big chances, which he probably should have done better with. So, I mean, yes, that was very good, and I do think Tamori is actually a really exciting prospect, but defenders are hit and miss when they're young, and there were as many in that game as there were, you know, moments of genius.
It doesn't help Tamori, though, not having Rudiger. Like, when Rudiger is back fit and firing, I think you'll see a different Chelsea backline. Like
Well, and Conte in front of them.
Yeah, and like Kurt Zouma, the more I watch him, the more erratic he is. Just not good on the ball.
That's where Rudiger steps in, like you said. Like, his distribution is key.
Not necessarily not good on the ball, actually, because he can pass it, but it's more his decision making, like shooting from 45 yards. Is that sort of the Marcos Rojo effect? It's just like, what are we doing here?
I think he's just a bit panicky because of how life has started this season, which was not well.
I don't know. I think that's just his game style. I actually just think that's just his game style. A bit choppy. Zouma, just kind of like.
He's always got a really
he was
rogue
good
touch
for Everton
in him.
last season, and especially in the last 10 games, he was keeping Yerry Mina out the team. They have one of the best defences in the league. Conversely, they have a very solid defence this year, but they've not got the rub of the green at all.
Yeah.
Oh, what was that?
I just think when Rudiger's back, then Chelsea's backline will look a lot stronger. And also, they've had problems with Azpilicueta at the start of the season. He seems to have resolved that a little bit now. They've had Emerson get a serious injury, Marcos Alonso having to come in there. Clearly, his defensive output is not as good as Emerson's. So, I think they've had both injury issues and like personnel issues at the start of the season, which is probably why the pressure is all going forward and they're having to score 3-4 goals a game.
Do you expect Tammy to sort of remain around 0.86 expected goals and assists? Because I think at the moment that's better than the likes of Salah.
I mean, I'd expect it to come down a bit.
But how much are we talking? Do you anticipate a drop? 9 goal contributions
It's
so
hard
far?
to tell. I mean, like, because everything kind of gets funneled to him in the attack, it's not like out of the realm of possibility that it stays extremely high. But I mean, for it to finish that level would be like kind of top of the Premier League level. So you'd expect it maybe to come down to 0.7 or something, which is great, more reasonable.
Like Mane finished as a top goal scorer.
It's
with
like
that last season, didn't he?
or something. But it's yeah. Though I mean, you know, Aubameyang was like 0.93, and like Salah's up in that range as well. Like I don't know. I think that sometimes players like Abraham get underrated by fans because a lot of fans, especially young fans, like really just love players who they're like, so-and-so is a baller. And like what they like therefore are like kind of technical midfielders. And so they'll say so-and-so is really, really good because you see him doing something skillful in the midfield. And as a result, they kind of slightly underrate the guys who might not be as aesthetically pleasing, but relentlessly get in the right areas and put the ball in the goal. And so Tammy Abraham last season, I think, in the Championship, a lot of people were like, oh, well, you know, he doesn't have like this silky touch. He's not as exciting to watch on the ball. But he just gets into the box and scores again and again and again. And I think that contributes to people. I think a lot of people went into the season having doubts about Tammy Abraham, but on the other hand, being really, really positive about Mason Mount, even though they were coming out of the same league and one of them was far more dominant in that league than the other.
Just because stylistically,
yeah,
a lot of what Abraham doesn't permeate on Twitter.
Well, yeah, exactly. You're not like
easily,
you don't see him like skill someone up in the midfield, and I feel like that. You know, this often happens. Like if you say someone like with Andre Gomes, for instance, a lot of people are like Andre Gomes is amazing.
He's gorgeous,
you see him. He's not my type, man. You see him do something skillful in the midfield and everyone's just like, oh, he's amazing. And then you're like, but you ignore the fact that like for 89 minutes of the game, he's anonymous and not good at anything.
Well, that's like story bias, isn't it? And we all love to put things into stories, into narratives. And Andre Gomes was the guy who dribbled past Van Dijk last season. So everyone's like, oh, he's so elegant. Like he's this, that and the other. But because Tammy Abraham does scrappy stuff.
Yeah, then they become
forever labelled a scrappy player.
I fear with Tammy that maybe it won't happen because he's come through at Chelsea and, you know, the fan base will be more defensive of him. But always fear that we'll eventually end up getting to the Lukaku phase of his career, where people are like, he's a donkey, he doesn't score enough against the big side. If he doesn't score against big sides, he'll be called a donkey. If he doesn't have a great touch, he'll be called a donkey. And that's always happens with young strikers.
It's weird how, like, all fans unanimously in Premier League clubs, they take great pride seeing the youth come through. And then when the level of expectation rises and they inevitably don't stay there, they don't plateau there, like, the patience with them is incredible. It's poor. It's really poor to see from fans. Rashford's had it as well. Like, Tammy Abraham will probably get it, you know, early next year if he's not banging
some of the chat about
regular
Rashford
goals
is just
in.
outrageous at the start.
Yeah, I mean, Rashford is now like, Rashford started the season really well, then everyone hated him, and now he's starting to prove them wrong again.
Just need to deploy a bit of patience, man, with these young players.
100% agreed. Any other names on this list we've got written down here? I think we've pretty much covered them all, haven't we?
Yeah, that's quite
At this stage?
comprehensive.
Right, so if there's any players that you doubted at the start of the season that's proven you wrong, why don't you let us know who they are in the comments below and on Twitter on these handles. Moving on then to quickfire questions. The first one was sent in by CVMBZ on Twitter. They say, rank the starting attacks of the top 6 when everyone is fully fit. They've put as a little caveat there.
Does this include managers, like, as in, you know, because
Yeah, it's a bit of a difficult one. I think City top band.
Yeah, by a long, long way. A long way.
Gabriel Jesus on the bench, who would probably be starting at any other club.
Sané's going to be out all year, and they're still fine.
And Riyad Mahrez has been absolute fire at the start of this campaign.
Okay, so City at top, Liverpool second.
Liverpool second.
Yeah, the top's okay. I mean, Harry Kane has been pretty darn consistent this season.
He's been pretty bad this season.
He's been carrying Spurs by and large, though, hasn't he?
But he's not good, is he? Like, did you see the chart comparing him to Tammy Abraham?
Good, man.
Do you see the chart comparing him to Tammy Abraham? It's literally every regard. Tammy Abraham is miles better.
Right. Yeah, but if Tammy was playing for this Tottenham team, he probably would be. Like, Tottenham all over the place.
This was true even last season. Like, these numbers are actually pretty consistent from last season.
We did just say that Tammy was running super hot.
No, but these are his underlying numbers: his shots, his expected goals, his expected assists.
That's yours,
everything.
sorry.
But Tottenham have just been howling.
Yeah, but they weren't howling last season. Not for the whole season.
And he scored a lot of goals.
Not in attack. He scored a lot of penalties.
I just started with Tottenham. I'm going down like who finished where last season. I don't think Tottenham.
Okay, third best attack.
Arsenal's talent.
I think Arsenal's talent
is better than Chelsea and Spurs, but Chelsea's attack currently is much better than Spurs or Arsenal or United.
Yeah, but every time you carve out a lead, he takes your number 10 off and puts Torreira there.
We don't have a number 10 play.
Well, you know, when Mesut
oh, that was in the League
last
Cup.
night in the League Cup.
I think,
but
talent-wise,
Torreira
Arsenal
becomes
are
your
in at
most
3.
advanced midfielder.
Talent-wise, Arsenal are in at 3.
Okay, so we're just going on the talent of the personnel, not how they're used or how they're playing this season.
I think on all counts, other than maybe Chelsea firing pretty hard.
Aubameyang finished top of the Premier League last season for expected goals and assists. He's still got a bunch of goals this season in an appalling team. But if you take Emery into account, then it's us and United at the bottom of this list. Right, because United's attack has been woeful as well.
Has been really poor, though Martial's been injured for a lot.
Does anyone break into this outside the traditional top 6, like Leicester's front 3? Vardy, Maddison, Perez?
Because their attack's not been great. Like that game against Southampton was the first where they again massively overperformed. Like that was the first game where they really, really hurt a team in attack.
Yeah, Jamie Vardy's shots have dropped.
I think Leicester's is like the rest of the team, isn't it?
They've dropped from like 3 to 1 point something as well. Like he is being super clinical at the moment without generating that many opportunities.
I think
Burnley's attack's actually
like in terms of talent, I think West Ham's is excellent.
That's true, West Ham.
But I don't think that. I still don't think Pellegrini's the right man.
I think expected points puts them at 18th.
Yeah, I still don't think Pellegrini's.
But their attack's alright. Like I mean, I like a lot of the talent that Wolves have in attack as well. I like some of the talent that Brighton have in attack, but like.
Okay.
They don't have the ball.
So what we can agree on though is Man City's number 1.
City, Liverpool. What we're going? Arsenal 3rd.
Arsenal and Tottenham, and then United, and then Chelsea United, I think.
Yeah. Arsenal, Tottenham, Chelsea. I agree with that. Yeah.
But we might look back in 5 years' time and look at the players Chelsea had there and think, yeah, you know, they turned out to be pretty good.
Not too bad. Right, the next one from Parte Medico says, who's been the best centre defender in the league so far?
Central defence is probably the hardest position to judge by stats, right?
And even by the eye, it's difficult.
Well, I think Matip had been fantastic pre-injury, so I think Joel Matip was a really good candidate. Obviously Van Dijk, but...
Yeah, we get a bit of grief for kind of missing Matip out, don't we?
Yeah.
I mean, Liverpool fans just give us grief for everything, but Matip's been great at the start of the season. I mean, Sionchu, I'm anticipating his form dropping, but if we're just talking the opening 10 games, brilliant. City haven't really got
can't pick a
a
player
consistent
there,
centre half, have they, at the moment? Although, like Rodri and Fernandinho, great to see I mean, we all anticipated them doing well there, but great to see them take to it so quickly.
It's just so hard because,
Basham, maybe?
Because a lot of these guys, like, they play in bad defences, so you're kind of like, oh, well, you can't say they've been the best defender in the league, but some of them just face so much traffic. It's inevitable. Yeah. Whereas other defenders see no traffic whatsoever, and everyone's like, "Well, they're amazing." You're like, "Well." It's
surprising, on the other, conversely, how bad Tottenham's centre halves have been, given it's still the same.
They don't want to be there, do they?
No one.
Like Jan Vertonghen and Alderweireld both out of contract.
No one wanted Alderweireld, and when he was available for 25 million. Like,
do you think that's the case though? Because they know he's going for free in the summer.
Sanchez
the same
really
way as Eriksen.
Liverpool.
No, but there were a lot of top teams desperate for a centre half.
Yeah.
And no one went in for him, and maybe that has kind of rubbed him the wrong way a little bit, like Eriksen. I think they prevented him from moving. I think it was interest from one party. I think it was unnamed. I think Manchester United probably would pick him up in January if he was available for like 40, 50 mil. So he's going to have suitors, but also he put himself out there, and no one really came in for him in convincing fashion. But anyway, going back to centre halves, like this point in Jan Vertonghen, Alderweireld. Jan Vertonghen has been consistently great his whole Spurs career, so maybe not beat.
And they were really good against
Liverpool.
Liverpool.
Too much,
really good.
Yeah.
Like
Socrates?
Liverpool couldn't get a good shot against them.
Socrates.
He's one of the worst players in the world.
Yeah, I think Joel Matip probably.
He looks like the tall Muppet.
Let's do one more then.
Burnett, is it?
Pranav.
I don't know.
Pranav says best midfield trio / pairing in the Premier League. Because then we've done attack, we've done defence, now we're doing midfield.
I got absolute grief for saying that Leicester's front three was on a par with Chelsea. No,
Leicester's
midfield three was on a par with Chelsea's midfield three.
I mean, rightfully so, though.
No, I think that's holding up. I think that's aging okay.
Against Chelsea?
Against Chelsea.
But Chelsea is so much better than Leicester.
In midfield?
Everywhere.
Kante?
Maybe not in defence,
I wouldn't say
everywhere else.
so much better.
Not in goal.
Leicester
are currently like the 8th or 9th best team in the league. Like, they're getting a little bit lucky.
Yeah, holistically, but midfield, 8 tackles and interceptions from Wilfred Ndidi. James Maddison, still outrageous at creating chances. And then you can throw who you like in there from who?
Tielemans, I suppose.
Yuri Tielemans. Yeah, Yuri Tielemans is it's definitely Yuri Tielemans.
I agree.
They're extremely talented, but like they're not. I don't know. They've been playing about as well as could be expected and getting the rub of the green, both in defence and attack, and they're still. I don't know. Chelsea are clearly the 3rd best team in the league, and Chelsea are closer to Liverpool than they are to Leicester.
Chelsea are the 3rd best team in the league. I agree with that statement, but just in terms midfield. Of maybe the ceiling of that midfield three, or them as individuals, obviously makes it a more complex question. But
yeah, because then you're like Ndidi, 8 tackles and interceptions, but then you're like, but N'Golo Kante, like.
I think there's a lot more to come from Yuri Tielemans. I don't think he's had a particularly great start to the season. James Maddison yet to kind of hit the same heights as last season. So yeah, them as a midfield three, it's good that there's that little bit of wiggle room and there's that growth there, and they're probably at the right age and the right manager. I think pretty hard pressed to
the best midfield
find a more complete midfield three than that.
I mean, City's got the best midfield. I think.
But also Fabinho plus any two at Liverpool seems to work pretty well.
But that's like system, isn't it? They're great players for that system. But individually, they don't look as talented as the aforementioned teams like Henderson, Wijnaldum, Fabinho.
Yeah, City do that.
But that's great. They need to be there for that system to work.
Like, City both individually and system, I think have the best midfield.
Yeah,
like they're just like man for man, just outrageous in every role. Well, I also think Arsenal have a fantastic midfield.
If they played them.
If they played the right system, I think in terms of talent there, like Ceballos, Guendouzi, Torreira, Ozil, I think they've got some really good midfielders, all in the wrong role.
If you put like Maddison, Tielemans and Ndidi up against like Torreira or Ceballos, Guendouzi and Ozil, I'm pretty happy with how that looks for Arsenal.
Close. I agree, it's close.
I think that's quite substantially better for Arsenal.
But I just think they're being used in totally the wrong way. Like, I'd take Ozil right now, as we sit. I'd take like Maddison in the moment over Ozil, but I think Ozil is a better player.
Yeah, of course. Like, Ozil's like a generational talent.
Yeah.
But Maddison's also like 8 years younger than him.
Yeah. So I think so. That's why I think it's close.
But is that
so
a point for Maddison or against him? Because you're like Ozil's like at the tail end of his career. Also, it's hard to gauge Ozil because he basically hasn't played like Premier League football in ages.
Like the assist in last night's game in the FL Cup. Like, there's very few players in the world who can do that.
He is playing 7-year-olds.
Yeah, we're not talking about that as much as we should be this morning. Of course, we filmed this on a Thursday, but we're talking about who would kind of take in the here and now. I'm guessing for the long run. We're always thinking in the long run, right? So that's why I think Leicester's they're so favourable at the moment. But so what are we ranking them? City's first,
Definitely.
and then what we're saying after that?
Liverpool's.
I think Liverpool, like, there's an amazing midfield in there.
So much depth as well.
It's just Liverpool purely for balance's sake. Like, they have that front three can do what they do because of the work on like midfield.
And Fabinho has a claim for being the best midfielder in the league currently.
And then
Really
I'll go Chelsea and Leicester very close. Arsenal just below that.
I don't even know who else there is in there.
Well, there's like Tottenham on paper don't have it too bad. If you look at like Lo Celso and Ndombele, Christian Eriksen, like personnel very good. They can't put them out.
I'd put them above Leicester and Chelsea.
But they just couldn't. Nobody's ever fit. Like Lo Celso looks like you're never going to play a game.
Yeah. I mean, Lo Celso, Ndombele, Eriksen, Ali, all those guys, like that to me is better than Arsenal, Leicester, Chelsea.
But I'm addressing it on like this season, right? And right now, because if you go like Lo Celso, like his best season at Betis, like yes. Christian Eriksen's best season at Tottenham, yes. And Ndombele's best season at Lyon, yes.
Yeah.
But like we've not seen them work together well in the Premier League as a midfield three.
Yeah, it's very close. But let us know what you think anyway. Let's move on to personal questions then. Wrap it up with this from Morris1375. What's your favourite chocolate bar?
Oh, what question!
Oh my God,
what a very, very tough question.
Yeah, there's good chocolate bars for every occasion, right?
I think it's a plain Galaxy.
A plain Galaxy is tremendous.
A plain Galaxy.
So the cookie one.
Dairy Milk really fell off a cliff about 6 months ago.
Yeah, they made it. Hershey's took over and they made the Dairy Milk smaller.
And Hershey's chocolate is
smells like Parmesan cheese.
I actually bought a 30% less sugar Dairy Milk full bar the other day. I had one bite of it. Chloe had one square. We threw it in the bin.
Wow. What, just like bang done? But do you put your Galaxy in a fridge so it goes a bit cold?
Of course. It's got to have a snack to a Galaxy.
Yeah. Oh, also a dime bar. A dime is tremendous.
Not bad.
Do you know what used to be great after swimming? This is quite niche. You got your 50p, not 50p anymore. Feeling quite old now. I'd get a white crunch bar.
No, awful.
What's that?
Awful decision.
A crunchy?
The one with the little biscuit balls in them.
No, you're wrong.
Crunch is not. It's fine.
No, the shortbread is
totally
snack.
average.
I don't know what that is.
Crunch is lovely, and I'll stand by that.
I have extremely high, very high ceilings on a chomp as well.
Oh, I'm not a chomp fan.
What?
Chomp.
I mean, if we're talking under 20p, then
my wife loves a chomp, but no.
Hard to be a chomp.
I prefer a caramel Freddo to a chomp.
I go through 6 or 7 chomps.
I prefer a regular Freddo to a caramel.
Interesting.
I go chomp and Galaxy, plain Galaxy.
But they're Europa League chocolate bars. If we're talking Champions, what, a chomp?
It's 100% a dime.
A dime is not a Champions League winning chocolate.
Also, those Reese's nut bars are
no, I've had enough of people saying Reese's is good. This fake peanut butter nonsense they're producing.
Those ones don't have peanut butter.
I don't like peanut butter at all. Dairy Milk Caramel, I think that's probably the best Dairy Milk.
No, because it's Dairy Milk.
But you know the little drops you get in the bag? Share a bag. Caramel nibbles.
I don't like
Curly Whirly?
No.
Curly Whirly also highly rated.
All these chewy ones are no good.
No, I don't know.
Chomps, fudges,
Curly Whirly.
Not
fudge.
All bad.
Fudge.
No, I think fudge is solid.
All trash.
All right, there we go. So that's the end of Sunday Vibes. What a riveting conversation to end on. If you want to get your question answered next week, slam it in the comments below or send it to us on Twitter. We usually put the tweet out on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. Anything else to push to? PL Daily? Who's doing one this week?
It's your PL Daily,
I don't know when it goes live.
On Chelsea. So one on the relegation scrap went out last week. It was great to see at least 3,000 new subscribers after the push on winners and losers, so thank you very much for that. And again, if you're not subscribed to FDPL, get over there. It's really good content. I've actually got Premier League rights. Probably don't speak about it enough, to be honest.
Yes. And also make sure you download the podcast, Sunday Vibes Extra Time, links in the description below. We're talking about how to save a club from relegation this week. Thanks very much for watching. Goodbye.
Oh, those Malteser bars.
No.